Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but as always, we want to give our sponsors a shout out. Now, please don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies I used as an athletic director or have a direct connection to. You should be using them too. So listen to our shout outs, then listen to the segment. And when it's over, hey, visit these sponsors. You're going to be glad that you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com. They're going to show you how to create world-class content for your social media channel, help celebrate your teams, and promote your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Take a look at their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and your proudest moments. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an AD, I wanted a platform that was going to serve all of our coaches and kids, and Huddle came through like a champ. Our coaches loved it. Our student athletes and our parents loved all the tools that Huddle provided. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and got little, if any, return on investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school, tremendous success, and so will you. It works. Go to snapraise.com to get started. We also want to thank Ohio University's online Master of Science in Athletic Administration program. This affordable 20-month online master's program focuses exclusively on interscholastic administration. And when you finish, you're not only going to have your master's degree, you'll have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses that can go toward your RAA or CAA. You'll also be a part of a vast graduate network with connections in K-12 athletics across the country. There's no GRE or GMAT required. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, Ohio University's master's program. We want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products will not only raise income for your athletic department, they'll create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. We want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you will use every single day, just like I did. Things like scheduling, athletic eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Communication with everybody in your program, uploading digital forms, you name it. Home Campus does it faster, they do it better, and it's going to make your job a lot easier. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but usually it's from the complainers, the ones that want to gripe about everything. And that's just a small percentage of your stakeholders. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent or your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to help you take the pulse of everybody in your program. athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going out to Nebraska today, and we're going to be talking with an old friend. Jenny Wagner is a certified athletic administrator, and she's the director of athletics and activities and about 100 other things. at Centennial High School. And like I said, that's in Nebraska. Jenny was on earlier in one of our Tech Tuesday segments, just did a great job. Thought she'd be a great guest, and here she is. So, Jenny Wagner, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Well, we're glad you're here. Again, for our listeners, we're recording this in late March. It's springtime, probably the busiest season for any athletic director. So let's go and jump right in. Jenny, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own high school and college years, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Jenny Wagner story?
Okay. Yeah, so I am a Nebraska born and bred, grew up in a small town in Malcolm, Nebraska. So just outside of Lincoln, which is the capital. We were probably about 15 minutes from there, but I grew up in a house of educators. My dad was a longtime athletic director at Malcolm High School, so I followed in his footsteps. But went all my kindergarten through 12th grade at Malcolm, played every sport I could possibly play. I was big into volleyball, big into basketball. I ran track. And then, was ready to go play collegiately in volleyball. But after my third ACL surgery, it was time to hang it up. So I had started out at the University of Northern Colorado, and I went out there to college for a year and then came back home to Nebraska and finished my schooling at Peru State. And when I graduated there, I was married and we had our first son. And so we were ready to kind of go find a job. And I started at Schuyler High School here in Nebraska. And I taught middle school. And then I was our head volleyball coach and assistant basketball coach there. I did that for 3 years and then went to Wilber-Clatonia. So just it's a co-op town, but another consolidated town here. And I was the fifth and sixth grade teacher and was head basketball assistant volleyball coach there. So kind of definitely my sports that I would say I forteed in were volleyball and basketball. But then from there, I moved on to being the athletic director, activities director, assistant principal at Centennial High School, which is in Utica, Nebraska. And I have been here for 6 years. I've got my husband and I have 3 boys, all super active, a junior in high school. And then we've got a 4th grader and a 2nd grader. So when I'm not running the gamut of everything here at school, I'm running the gamut of being a mom and trying to get to all their activities too, because now, of course, they're involved in everything as well. So it's just go, go, go all the time in my house.
Wow. I remember those days. My wife was a career teacher and coach, and we were very fortunate. We were almost always in our careers at the same school. And of course, our kids, very close in order. We had a senior, a junior, and a freshman. I don't recommend that.
Yes.
All 3 were in college at the same time. But, and you mentioned Peru State. I've actually been on the campus at Peru State 100 years ago, back in the 90s. I was coaching college football. We played at Peru
Okay.
State.
Yeah.
I want to go back to your high school days.
Mhm.
You mentioned multiple sports, which, again, as athletic administrators, we certainly promote that. And I'm a lot older than you. Okay. Did you ever feel any pressure from one of your high school coaches? Hey, Jen, you need to forget about this sport and focus on, my sport or this sport. Was that a thing when you were in high school?
It wasn't as much as a thing when I was in high school. I would say not that the club scene wasn't big, especially club volleyball, not that that wasn't as big as what I would say that it is now. But it was maybe just kind of in the beginning phases. I mean, I am 20 years out of high school, so I feel like I'm getting old.
I
But it
got
was
t-shirts
probably,
older than that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was probably kind of in the, early stages of it. So I don't feel like I had a lot of pressure. I did the nice thing I feel like is that I went to a small school. And so in that small school, you had to be in everything in order for all of those programs to succeed. So not only was I a volleyball player and a basketball player and I was on the track team, but I was on the speech team and I was in one act and I was in choir, and I was in FBLA. And a lot of our kids were involved in multiple activities just in order to make them be successful. And so I feel like our coaches and our sponsors worked very cohesively together to really try to get the most of kids. Now, I do see the shift that has happened, that I do feel like sometimes we do have coaches and sponsors that try to push kids to be a single sport focus athlete. But I know like a lot of the trainings and PD that I do with our coaches is we talk about the benefits of multi-sport athletes and what it brings to those those athletes, whether it's while they're in high school or looking into collegiately, what it's going to do for them. And that as college coaches, they're recruiting kids that are multi-sport athletes, not the ones that focus on a single sport, regardless how good they might be. So I'm thankful that I grew up where I did, and it wasn't that pressure of I was only able to focus on one sport. Because honestly, I probably would have just been a volleyball player. I was really good. I had, college scholarship offers. But I loved basketball, and I loved, I don't want to say I loved running track. Who loves running track? But I did like being a part of the team.
Right.
So yeah, it was just a different world than what it is now.
No, and again, I'm going to sound like the cranky old guy on his front
Yeah.
porch, but you talk about the benefits of
Mhm.
multi-sport participation, getting coached by a different coach, not the same coach all
Yep.
year long, year after year, meeting other student athletes. I'm going to bet that, you said you've been out of high school now for, oh my
I
goodness,
know.
20 years. Get out of here. But I'm going to bet you still have friends, contacts from all of those sports that had you not played multiple sports, you would have lost out on that. It just kills me.
Mhm.
Here's the soapbox part. I'll hear coaches all the time and ADs. Oh, we got to prepare these kids for college. We got to do this, we got to do that. Talking about college athletics.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, you don't. Okay, because only 6% at best are going to play. What about the other 94% of your
Mhm.
kids? You're not providing them with a great high school experience? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
stepping down off my soapbox.
No, I agree.
I'm going to ask you a question, and this is
Mhm.
kind of out of left field. You talked about club sports and you mentioned club volleyball, and we've got club everything except football.
Mhm.
How come there's no club football?
Yeah.
Um, Parents oftentimes think that club is the way for their kid to get, to that next level, whatever that next level is. And you and I know the realities of that. In Nebraska, and I know that Nebraska just had a huge, volleyball season and packed the stadium. I mean, just great stuff. So I'm in no way denigrating volleyball or Nebraska,
Mhm.
but from your perspective, how the best club volleyball player in Nebraska, where are they going to rank on that national search? We see it in Florida all the time. We have lacrosse. I don't know if you have
Mhm.
lacrosse in here.
We do
And
not. They are trying to get it to be brought here,
right.
but
And,
not
and
yet.
we've got some really great coaches, some
Mhm.
great kids, but the reality is the best lacrosse player in Florida, sort of, is going to be third or fourth string in Virginia or Maryland or someplace where
Mhm.
that's the culture. And again, I had a great lacrosse coach, great lacrosse programs, great lacrosse kids. So if anybody's
Mhm.
listening, okay, I'm not denigrating you. So what's the volleyball barometer in Nebraska? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah. No, I don't know. That's, here's the thing. I think volleyball in Nebraska is what people live and breathe. We were good at football in the 90s. I mean, yeah, I was a kid, but we were good at football in the 90s. But to be honest, like my own children have never seen Nebraska football be good, right? But they have over and over seen Nebraska volleyball consistently be good. And so even in the club scene, we do have typically probably 2 or 3 players that rank number in the top 10 in the nation. And they're going to go on and they're going to be, whether they go to Nebraska or they go outside of Nebraska, they are going to be on that court that are some of the best club players. However, those same 3 to 4 players that are in the top 10 are also playing basketball or are also in girls wrestling or are also doing something else. And that's big of, I'm going to probably promote John Cook here, but he was at our athletic banquet. He goes out and speaks all over, but he came to our high school athletic banquet 6 years ago. I think it was my first year. But came and talked to our kids, and huge proponent of multi-sport athletes. And that when he goes on the recruiting trail, he's specifically looking for kids that are involved in multi-sport, and multiple different sports, multiple different activities. And he doesn't like that kid that necessarily just single sport focuses. So yes, is he watching them on the club scene? Yes, but he also will go and watch them at their basketball game. And he'll also, because he wants to see how do they interact with their teammates? What type of character do they have? What are they building with their coaches that's not on the volleyball court that I can see elsewhere? So, sorry, our school bell.
No worries. Okay.
Yeah. I will give him that credit of really promoting the multi-sport athletics within our state, and with volleyball being so huge, people respect him and they respect what he says. And it's really probably put a push more to our kids to being a part of other sports and other activities.
Oh, wow. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
If you've got a connection, you need to connect me with him. I'll get him on the podcast. What a great
I will
message.
see what I can do.
What a
Yes.
great message for ADs. And you mentioned doing other sports, like basketball or wrestling. But if I was a volleyball coach, I would love to see, my players wrestle in the off
Yes.
season. As a football coach, we loved it. But boy, that would just be so cool. Let's
Mhm.
go and take a quick break. Our guest today is Jenny Wagner. She's a certified athletic administrator, and she's the director of athletics and activities at Centennial High School in Nebraska. We're going to take that break, but we're coming back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their score tables and their score boards in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, just like I did. Things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every single day? Communicating with everybody in your program, everybody in your state, uploading digital forms, you name it, Home Campus does it, and they're going to do it better and faster than your current platform. And they're going to make your job a lot easier. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Jenny Wagner. She's a CAA and she's the Director of Athletics at Centennial High School in Nebraska. Jenny, you shared a little bit about your journey. I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive. You followed that path of teacher and coach and head coach, had some successes, but as you were going on that journey, what were some things that were kind of clicking for you that made you decide to come to the other side of the desk as an AD?
Yeah. Um, to be honest, I started in college in sports management marketing. So I didn't even start in college in education. Like I had said earlier, I grew up in a household of educators. My mom was a longtime special education teacher, and my dad was a teacher coach, and then he was the athletic director. Like I said, there for 35 years. I believe he was the athletic director. He was at Malcolm for 43 years. So, saw that whole career, that path. And I just thought when I got into college, like I love sports and I loved kind of being involved in them, but wanted to find a different way. And so I'd started in sports management marketing. And took a couple classes of honestly accounting, and I was like, oh, I can't do this every day, day in and day out. So I switched over to education, thinking, what can I do to still have sports be a part of my life, but I can impact kids and I can impact our future and be involved in things within my community, because that's probably what I loved seeing the most growing up was, in a house of educators. So just getting to see the impact, especially that my dad had on his coaches and on his athletes and in his community. And I just wanted to be able to have that impact. And so, I was a successful athlete in high school. We went to multiple state tournaments. And so then I just felt like once I got into coaching, I loved volleyball, I loved basketball, and I had the opportunity in my first job to be a head volleyball coach and take over and a program that honestly didn't have a whole lot of success. And so I felt like it was a place that I could prove myself, but also I learned a lot, and it helped me grow, and it helped me maybe kind of see like how to be a leader in a different way than what it was as an athlete. And then also like, how can you help kids believe in something that hasn't been there before for them? And when I left there, we had a lot of success. I had a girl that went on to go play college at a small college in Nebraska, who in her senior year playing there as a collegiate athlete was the NIA National Player of the Year, and they won the national championship. So to be able to kind of expose her to, she wasn't even going to go to college. And I was like, I'm telling you, you are good. Like, and we're going to develop you to that. So then to see her 4 years later be the national player of the year, as they won the national championship, was just really rewarding. And it made me feel like maybe that was what my impact needed to be at that time, was a coach and making that difference in kids' life. And I'd flipped roles, and we went to a new school, and honestly moved for my husband's job. So went to a new school and took over basketball in a very similar manner. They hadn't won a game in the past 3 years, that from when I'd gotten there. And so I was like, well, we got to win the first game, because I am not going to be part of this losing streak, which we did. So that was that was a big bonus, because I was like, I cannot be a part of this. We are winners. But kind of did similar things of just changing the culture, and worked a lot with, I had various assistants that went through the program, and I really became close with our boys coach. And we worked a lot to build our youth programs. And it made me kind of feel like maybe I wanted to dip my toe into the other side of, I liked the partnership. I liked leading our assistant coaches. I liked, when I became close with our boys coach, we had a lot of things that we would try to do together with culture and changing our program as a whole. And I just felt like I love what I've been able to do as a coach in impacting kids. And I think I can do that same thing on a bigger scale. And that's really when I started looking towards an athletic director role.
I'm going to ask you two questions, but we'll see if we have time for a third. As you become a head coach, as you become an AD, there's that expression, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What were some things that, I'm not going to say struggle with, but maybe caught you by surprise when you became the AD? Oh, geez, I'm responsible for this. Anything stick out for you?
Man, I would say the relationships that you still needed to build. I think that, like, as a coach, everybody knows, like, you have to build relationships with your athletes and with the parents, and and everybody kind of knows that. But the relationships now, and that's a lot of times I'll have people ask me, like, do you miss coaching? And my answer is, I miss the relationships that I had with my individual athletes. But what I found and what I learned is I get to have relationships in a whole different way with a whole bunch of people, where before, as the girls basketball coach, I didn't really know the football players that well, or I didn't really know the wrestlers that well, especially probably the wrestlers, because let's be real, we played basketball the same time they were wrestling. So I never went to a meet. And so I just think, like, that was one thing I learned on the athletic director scale was, wow, I get to impact and have relationships with everybody. And I get to see and learn and grow about every single sport. And I think the other thing that maybe was like I don't know if it's a surprise or what, and this is probably coming from growing up in the household of an AD, and they do things a little bit different, but he never hired or fired his coaches. That was always their principals that would do that, because it was typically their teachers. And so they were hiring and firing teachers. And so here's your coaches. This is who we have as teachers. Or he didn't necessarily run his own budget. It was more so like, you order what you need, but we're going to take care of that. And so it kind of opened my eyes of where I'm at. I do all the hiring or, firing of our coaches. And not everybody is a teacher, especially in today's society. You have a lot of people that are outside community members that we're having to bring in to be coaches, and just really teaching them the educational background, because that's probably a shocker for some people that are community members that didn't necessarily grow up or get a teaching degree. They didn't go through all of those classes of how you work in the educational setting compared to how you work outside of the educational setting. So that's been a surprise. And then where I think I poked at this at the beginning of the sports marketing and management that I went into, those were probably some of the most successful classes or worthwhile classes I took in college, unbeknownst at that time, because let's be real, our job is to market all of our sports and athletics. So that's been super beneficial to me. And it's funny because I didn't like accounting classes, and now I run my own pretty significant budget. And I enjoy the number crunching, and I enjoy looking at that. So things that I think that I didn't realize that I would actually enjoy are some of my favorite pieces.
Oh no, absolutely. I think my mind is wired for that minutia, the
Hmm.
budgets and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned professional development, building culture, things like that. And as an AD, it's as a head coach, it's easy, as you mentioned, to build those relationships and connect with kids. As an AD, what are some things that you do intentionally to get with students to help let them see you as, oh geez, here comes Coach Wagner, somebody's in trouble. So it's not that, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've tried a lot of different things, but I'm gonna honestly say this year has been the most successful. So I'm gonna kind of brag up that. Like I said, we tried a lot of different things, whether it's like in our student section, or we had a year that we called like show up for each other. And so if kids like, obviously our band kids or our, any of our student body, they're always at every football game, right? They're either playing in the band or they're cheering, but we don't necessarily see our football players at the concerts, or we don't see our basketball team coming to watch the winter, band concert. And so we had one year that was a show up for each other campaign. And I would give them little like rewards of, hey, if you show up to the concert tonight, you get free a la carte, which is at our lunch. You get to pick a free like snack, just to, and vice versa. It was like, if you came to the basketball game or you come to the football game to support in the student section and you're loud and you're cheering, we're going to also reward. So we had a year of that show up for each other. I think it was really good, but that was the culture of the kids that we had. And now, as what I'm finding, and I think everybody's finding this, our kids are just different every single year, even. And we have to find a different way. Like things that we did even 3 to 4 years ago do not meet the kids that are today in high school. They're just different. And so we started a partnership. It's called Lead 'em Up. So I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. So we started a partnership this year with Lead 'em Up. And I started it with our coaches, and then we also started with we call it our SALT team, so our student activity or athlete leadership team, and we let anybody be a part of it. We have 20 minutes of homeroom every day, so we meet as a group once a week, and myself and a different head coach or assistant coach, I let any of my coaches sign up to help lead it. We lead different lessons, and it's open, like I said, to anybody. If you are in an extracurricular activity, you're invited to come, because we don't want to tell you you don't have the tools to be a leader. Because if we don't help you have the tools to be a leader, how do we ever expect you to be a leader? So we invite everybody from 9th grade through 12th grade. And we get up to 40 to 50 kids there. And like I said, we have about 150 kids in our high school. So we feel like it's a pretty good turnout. And we go through those lead 'em up lessons, and we just have real conversations about culture and about leadership and program development and being a good teammate. And I just think it's been really impactful, and we're really hoping that as we continue on in this journey, that we'll see that impact in our future teams, and hope that we've really built some leaders, especially like in our sophomores and juniors, and hope that we see that reap the benefits of it the next couple of years. But this is the first year that we've started that. And I also did it with our coaches. Like I said, we meet once a month. And I had to do it in the morning because, it's when else do you get to see your coaches and sponsors? So it's once a month in the morning, and it's been really good. It's really, really good.
Well, we actually had the Lead 'em Up folks on the podcast, I think about a year ago. And
Hmm.
you're right, it's a great program. So,
Yeah.
listeners, check them out.
Yeah.
Speaking of checking out, Jenny, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, find out more about your programs, or just to add you to their network, and listeners, you got a great resource here. What's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I am happy to help, and I would love to grow my network too. So the best way to get a hold of me, you can call me. My own personal cell number is 402-310-6957. And you can also email me. I answer those all the time, as I'm sure all of you do as well. But my email is jenny.wagner, and that's at centennialbroncos.org.
Okay. And again, we'll put that information out again at the end of the show. And Jenny's information's on the NIAAA membership portal for all of our
Mhm.
NIAAA members. Let's go and take another break, but we are definitely coming back with some more best practices. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to our good friends at Gipper for their support. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to show you how to create world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel to help celebrate your teams and promote your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. They're going to show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for athletic events, but things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager. It's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. And we want to thank Ohio University's online Master of Science in Athletic Administration. This affordable 20-month online program focuses exclusively on interscholastic administration. And when you finish, you're not only going to have your master's degree, you will have completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses that can go toward your RAA or CAA credentials. You're also going to be part of a tremendous graduate network with connections all across the country in K-12 athletics. There's no GRE or GMAT required. And to get started, all you have to do is go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. Ohio University's online master's in athletic administration. Check it out. Welcome back, everybody. Once again, we're visiting today with Jenny Wagner of Centennial High School in Nebraska. Jenny, we mentioned earlier, you're a certified athletic administrator. Now, that doesn't happen by accident. Can you share your journey so far with your state association? I know Nebraska has a very active state association, and your NIAAA experience.
Yeah. So as a first year AD, like I said before, my dad was a longtime athletic director, and he was still the active athletic director when I started. So my first couple of years, it was kind of nice. We got to be athletic directors together of local schools. We played each other. But he definitely took me under his wing, along with a few of his friends that had been ADs for a long time and a big part of the NIAAA. And got me involved and started me out my very first year taking my first couple of classes of LTIs, and kind of got me hooked, and honestly just gave me a lot of resources as I was starting out in the field of, ways to be successful as an athletic administrator, taking the, 501 and 502. And so that just got me on the path, and then really just a lot of push from friends that are, that at the time they were colleagues that now I call my friends that are part of the NIAAA and NSI AAA, and made me push to want to get my CAA. And so my very first year as an athletic administrator, I didn't go to the national conference, but I have been every year since. And I will go every year because it is a huge experience that every AD I think needs to be a part of, especially just the networking alone. But I took a lot of my classes out there, my law classes. I make sure to take every single one from, now I'm going to drop his name. You're gonna have to help me, Jake, from Dr. Lee.
Oh, Lee Greenwood.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. Sorry. I was like, I'm dropping his name. Yeah. So that was huge that was the biggest thing of wanting to take my law classes from him and just learn so much of the best practices of what we needed to do. And came back and had gotten my classes within my first 2 years. And so I was able to take my exam. I filled out the application, and I do a lot of stuff within my own state, within my own school, which helped me get the points that you need. But we host a lot of events here, whether it's our conference events, whether it's districts, whether it's state. I am very involved. And then I serve as a secretary treasurer on our state association board. And I have done that for the past 5 years. So I wanted to get involved right away in that. And then from there, it kind of evolved to becoming the Section 5 secretary. And so I take all of our notes at our section meetings. And this is just coming out, but I will be a part of the 6th strategic plan as well. So I think that'll be a really cool experience on the national level to get to be a part of. And I know I went to in Orlando a class for my CMAA. So starting to try to brainstorm what I would like to do as a project. I have finished all of the classes that I need for my CMAA. I think to date, I was just counting as Nate Larson and I were trying to decide some classes to teach to other ADs in our state. I think I have taken 18 different LTI classes. So I just think it's huge to know that if you're interested in some area, there's definitely probably a class on it, and take it because it's going to benefit you. But yeah, I'm thinking about a project, something about marketing. I'm big into marketing. So whatever that looks like, I'm not sure yet, but.
All right. Well, that was going to be my next question. And for listeners, just like Jenny, you're doing something right now at your school that would
Mhm.
make a great CMAA project. You don't have to come up with some, wild thing that's never been done before. Maybe what you're doing right now is that wild
Mhm.
thing, but it's could be something with coaches. It might be something with your student athletes or parents or facilities. I guarantee you're doing something that would be a great project. And I might know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I was on the National Certification Committee for a number of years. So if you need some help on your CMA or your CAA, you have a state coordinator in your state for usually two different people, certification and LTI. Reach out to them first. And if you want, somebody else's opinion, you can reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. Um, Jenny, you mentioned the legal courses, and people will often say, oh, wow, those were scary. I didn't realize all the things we were responsible for. Well, that's true. But there's also things in those courses, multiple things that I'll hear ADs immediately bring back and institute in some way at their school. Separate from the legal courses, I'm putting you on the spot again.
Mhm.
Can you think of a course that you've taken where you immediately brought something back and started using it at Centennial High School?
Yeah. I'm going to give two different classes because I think that they impact kids in two different ways. So I'm not going to remember the number of them.
That's
I
okay.
believe maybe 628. I don't know, but it's the mental health of the student athlete one. So like I said, I can't remember the exact number, but I took that at our state conference. And wow, was it just impactful of, especially since COVID, what our students and what our athletes are going through. And so something that they talked about was different, like PD that they had in there that we could talk through with our coaches and our kids, resources that we could try to bring in to make, us being supportive of the mental health side of our student athletes. And so we brought back and implemented, some pieces where it's called, Team Tuesdays is what we call them, but every team across our program, whether they're a sport or an activity, and I don't want to say it's always on a Tuesday, it's called Team Tuesdays because that's what it took on, but sometimes there's games on Tuesdays, but they find one of the days in the week and they talk about things that are non-related to their sport or their activity. So for example, I'm going to give our football program, and they've honestly probably kind of changed it into a team Thursday because they ended up doing it on Thursdays because it's a shorter day of practice. But it's a character lesson that they're doing, and it's real things that our kids are dealing with, whether it's maybe social media challenges that you're seeing out there, and how do our kids deal with having, a lot of pressure out there in social media, or it's, just learning how to, our coaches talk a lot about being productive citizens and being good fathers and good mothers and good wives and good husbands. And, just what does life outside of the sport or the activity, that there's so much more to it than just being the athlete. A lot of things that came out of that class, it talks about those kids that you think have it all together, sometimes are the ones that are falling apart the most, that we don't realize that, they're your straight A students. They're the starter on your basketball team. They're the best player on your volleyball team. They have the great family. They have the perfect home, but they put so much pressure on themselves to be perfect that you don't really know that they're falling apart inside. And so we wanted to make sure, like, we caught those kids, that if we see it, we're doing things as a staff, as our coaches and our sponsors, to be able to make sure that our kids don't fall into that. Because I think it's too often, everybody knows the kids that are struggling. They maybe don't have the best home life. They maybe aren't the best student. They aren't the top athlete. And so you all obviously gravitate towards those kids to help them. But we oftentimes miss our high flyers that I think that's where we have been able to impact kids that I took from that class and put in right away.
Yeah,
Um,
it's such a great point, and I actually have a section on that in something I share with coaches and with parents is, we all have different gifts or different tools, as I like to say. And that superstar athlete, could be volleyball, could be
mhm,
football. They might be great in that setting, but as you mentioned, might struggle academically, might be
mhm.
struggling at home. So yeah, absolutely. Great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other class, like I said, maybe not as impactful to students. And again, I might not quite get the number. I think it's 611, but it was marketing of your and like fundraising or promoting of your athletic department, which is where I'm kind of on my CMAA path of that's what my project's going to be probably. But I love that side of how do we market our program? How do we build our brand? How do we make people want to come to Centennial? How do we grow that I'm attracting the best coaches, the kids want to play here. We're bringing in new programs and that we're selling our brand across all avenues and we're bringing in revenue for our program. And so there's a ton of great ideas within that class of ways to brand your school, brand your program, promote your coaches, promote your athletes. Bring revenue in, whether it's through video boards or whether it's through, whatever that might be. It's partnerships with businesses in your community. There's just so many great resources and ideas that if that is your cup of tea, I highly recommend the class because there's a ton of great ideas in it.
No, I've taken that course. You're absolutely right. It's got some great stuff. And it's one of
Yeah.
those courses they update frequently, so the
Yeah.
the content stays current. We're going to take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we are coming back with some more best practices. Once again, our guest is Jenny Wagner, certified athletic administrator and the director of athletics at Centennial High School in Nebraska. So let's take that break. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com, and check out their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or your school's Hall of Fame, or simply share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. We want to say thanks to our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then got little, if any, return on investment? Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it, our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms, but if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Snapraise.com. We want to say thanks to our friends at Huddle. Go to huddle.com. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to work for all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. All of our coaches and our student athletes just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them experience sports at the highest level. Our fans loved it because of the streaming opportunities. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. That's right, 8 million, and turn your school into a Huddle school.
Yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to Huddle. I know that they're a sponsor here of Educational AD Podcast, but I highly recommend Huddle. We use them in our school for all of our sports, all of our activities that are able to be on there. And I just can't speak highly enough about Huddle and what it can do for our program and our coaches and athletes.
Oh, that's so great to hear. And again, you heard me talk about our experience at our school. Um, what's some feedback that you've gotten maybe from the parent group about the tools that Huddle provides?
Yeah, I think just the ease of use, especially with the streaming services that they have, they like being able to, just click into their fan page and every game that we have is there. It's even archived that they can watch previous games that are, their kids were a part of. And I think that's just a very easy to use interactive tool that our parents, even our grandparents, are able to navigate, which I think is huge.
That's right. You got to throw the grandparents in there. It's like me, and I'm a grandparent. These platforms like Huddle and others, they're so easy that even I can use it. So let's
Yeah.
go and move on. Jenny, one of the things that we like to one of the things that we're proud of, let's say, is that we feel we do a pretty good job of sharing best practices. So one more time, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do at Centennial? Maybe it's initiatives that you started, or maybe it's a long time tradition that you have pumped some new life into. But what are some things at your school that you would consider best practices to share with our listeners?
Yeah. Um, I would say probably my best practice that I do is the relationship building that I have, but it's the way I go about it. And that's why I'd say it's a best practice. But, I have with it's my coaches, and I'm going to kind of go from each angle, but with my coaches, we have multiple meetings throughout the year, not just when they're in season, but it's the setup one's preseason, so we make sure we're ready to go. Mid-season, check in things, how things are going. End of the season, it's our evaluation. It's those that everybody has. But it's the little conversations that go in day in and day out with every single one of my coaches. I think that's probably makes my job more rewarding and my relationship with my coaches a lot easier, and having really non-issues that take place because we're able to talk to each other every single day. Like I said, I am in a smaller school. We are a preschool through 12th grade building. We're all into the same building. But what that means is every single coach is in my building that is a head coach for me. So we don't have any head coaches that are external. So I get to see my coaches every single day, and I get to have that relationship with them. And so just even that little snippet of finding out about their life outside of coaching, I think has really gone a long way of just getting to know them. And I go farther with that of at the beginning of the year, we have like a staff or coaches get together out at our house or out at my assistant, like our principal and assistant ADs, that we'll go to different administrators' houses and we'll feed them, we'll bring them the meat, they'll all hang out, but it's inviting their families to it, their kids, their spouses, and just really making us be one big family, I think probably has made my job a lot easier. And then, kind of with that is the same relationships then you carry from your coaches to then our student athletes. And this is where I'm going to say probably my favorite best practice that I have. I have these little blue note cards. Our school colors are blue and white. So I have these little blue note cards. And I make sure to handwrite a personal note to every single one of my student athletes or student activity participants sometime throughout the season. And I'm pointing out whether it's something I saw at the game that they did, or whether it's a performance I did at the concert, or whether it's a good luck wishing them, in the upcoming sub districts or whatever that might be. But I, give them a handwritten note that I then stick in their locker late at night. So they're all gone. But when they get here the next morning, it's the first thing that they see at school is the little note, just really like singling things out and hopefully making them feel good about themselves. And holy moly, like the impact that I think it's had has just been second to none. This is my second year of doing that, and I feel like I am rewarded just as much as maybe the kids are. So if you get a chance, handwritten notes go a long way. And I started doing that with our coaches this year too. Just every once in a while, I'll do a random walkthrough and put a note on their desk of something I saw at practice the night before, something that I saw in their game, something that I saw in their, in their classroom if they were walking through. Because handwritten notes just go a long way. And so I know it's old fashioned, but I think everybody loves to get that.
Boy, now I know you're at a small school, but every single student athlete. Now, I'm not trying to pat myself on the
Yeah.
back. I would do that with our kids who were selected to our local newspaper. They would do first team, second
Mhm.
team, and honorable mention, all county, or that we were in the panhandle in Florida, all panhandle.
Yep.
And so it was probably maybe about 100 total letters each season. And I had that same thing. I had that special stationery,
Mhm.
that I
Yep.
would, hey, congratulations, very proud of you. I try to come up with different things to say because I didn't want them comparing, with somebody else. But occasionally I would get kids come up and say, hey, coach, thanks. I appreciate that letter. But
Mhm.
overwhelmingly, it was their parents
Yep.
that would come up, and sometimes mothers in tears, thank you for those kind words. Nobody's ever done that before. And you're absolutely right. The power of that handwritten letter,
Mhm.
and not even a letter, just a note.
Yeah.
You just can't measure it. Thank you for sharing that. best
Yeah.
practice. So hopefully you got something left for the toolbox.
I do. Let me give a little tip on you said that, because I think it's important that kids do compare notes. And so they want to be like, are you just a broken record that you wrote the same thing to everybody else? Use AI as your friend. So that has become my friend this year. If you are into AI and you just type in positive note from athletic director to a student athlete, they got a plethora of ideas.
Oh my
So
gosh.
use it as your friend.
I was using natural AI, which is
Yeah.
probably no intelligence. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I at least I knew that. Boy, I got to change the message here. Um, we already talked about the toolbox. This has been great, Jenny, catching up with you. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. So we're gonna take our final break here from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge Jenny Wagner to send out a brand new AD on the very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in the toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys, and then we'll find out what's going into Jenny Wagner's new AD2 toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic directors already get feedback, but typically it's from a very small group of complainers. You know the ones. They want to gripe about everything. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that information is tremendously valuable when you're talking to a frustrated parent or maybe a frustrated student athlete, or how about your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Jenny Wagner, a certified athletic administrator and the director of athletics and activities at Centennial High School, Nebraska. Has a tremendous background in athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new AD on their very first job, and I'm only going to let her put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Jenny, what 3 items are going into your new athletic director toolbox?
Yeah, my first item is be visible. And what I mean by that is be present. Go to the games, go to the concerts, go to the activities, be at practice. Do walkthroughs at different times. Be in the summer in the weight room. Show up to their team camp if you're hosting it. I know it takes a lot, and it's a lot of time that you put in, but kids notice and coaches notice, and more so parents notice. And so if you are visible, it's really easy for you to know if there is anything that's great going on in your program, and then vice versa, if there's issues that you need to handle, because you're there, you've seen it. But like I said, more so like you're genuine, and your kids and your coaches know that you're there for them. So that's definitely my number one tip for your toolbox. Number 2, I talked on it as my best practice, but those handwritten notes go a long way, and make it something that's personal for your own. So like I said, I have blue note cards that I get personal to Centennial High School. And everybody knows that they see a blue note card, it's from Mrs. Wagner. And, I think that goes a long way, but writing those personalized handwritten notes to your student athletes, to your coaches, I know it takes time, but the reward at the end is worth it. And then my third one is listen. And I know that's easier said than done. But a lot of times people come in and they think that they've got their own mindset and what they want to do, and they're going to change all these things, and they're going to make it better, and they're going to make it their own. And really, especially as your first year, take time and listen, and talk to each of your coaches individually. Get a feel for your community, get a feel with your other administrators, what your school is, what your program is, what the athletics and activities mean in your community, and what does your community want out of that. It goes a long way to listen, and you don't have to do everything that's suggested to you, or you don't have to take everybody's word. But I promise you that when you then want to put your own initiatives in, they're going to listen to you back because you did the same thing.
Boy, I just love them all. We already talked about the notes, but you're absolutely right. You got to be present. People got to see you. You can't just be in your office, sit behind that desk. You got to get out and get around. And listening. Listeners to this podcast have heard me
Yeah.
say this so many times. I list that as probably my number one tool, but I also say it was a tool that I failed to use until way too late in my career. And when I finally started using it, just like you said, it was just so impactful. So absolutely listen. Jenny, thanks again for spending some time with us. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, connect with you, or pick your brain a little bit about all things Centennial High, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Thank you again for having me. And I'm happy to connect with anybody. So you can call me. My personal cell is 402-310-6957. You can also email me. It's jenny.wagner@centennialbroncos.org. And you can, reach out, and I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to grow my network and really be a part of any other AD in this journey together.
Well, all the best moving forward, as we said, in that busy spring season.
Yes.
And, let's get you back on, for an update. We will look for you at the Border State Summit, I assume, and
Yes.
definitely in Austin next year for the national conference.
Yes, that is awesome. I can't wait.
For our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day with new content and best practices. So come back next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast.